Hello and welcome to a special edition of ESO Weekly, because with us is someone who is quickly becoming our somewhat of an unofficial publicist for the Shoddy Cast. We know him as Mark, but you may know him as Lord Hammer and the community leader of Guild Umbra. How you doing, Mark?
I'm doing well. Thanks for having me.
Awesome. So for those who don't know, why don't you let us know a little bit about your past experiences through MMOs and also being part of the leadership with Guild Umbra.
Sure. So I've been playing MMOs or online games back when they were text-based called MUD, so it's been almost 20 years. So I've been playing almost any MMO you could think of. I've tested, beta tested, or just played through subscription or free-to-play. Pretty much any MMO you could think of, EverQuest, Ultima, the full gamut. And in terms of probably the community, I've been in and out of guilds throughout that entire time. Some really great, some not so great. And so prior to another MMO that came out, I guess a year and a half ago, or a little over a year ago, was Star Wars: The Old Republic, I finally decided I'd create my own guild. So in 2009, I created basically Guild Umbra, because I just wanted to have the final, full experience, as opposed to just a couple of guys who get together on a weekend and decide they're gonna, noob it up and create a guild that goes nowhere. So back in 2009, for 2 years, from 2009 to 2011, I basically built Guild Umbra up through a grassroots movement with some of my friends, some people I'd played in MMOs with prior to that, but primarily through just building a good website. I used Guild Launch as my tool set because I didn't know how to code from HTML. I do something from scratch. So I used Guild Launch. It gave me all the tools I needed. And with that, I just started building a site that I thought was going to be worthy of a good guild, and really just kind of hit the social networking scene, following the game, following other guilds, following podcasts, following fan sites. And essentially, I ended up turning the guild website into my blog, for lack of a better word. And then I started getting into podcasting through, looking at what Darth Hader and Most Lazy Radio and a bunch of others were doing. And so started working with some other fans in the community, and we came up with the Tour Syndicate concept. So with myself and a guy named Ken Hanksman, founded the Tour Syndicate, and our big niche was going to be the community. Darth Hader had the great website, Most Lazy Radio for Tor had the great podcast, and then there were many different smatterings of in between. So we decided to not do what they're already doing. We decided to try to make it all about the community and bringing fledgling sites that were in trouble, and then sites that just wanted to work with the community together. So we just kind of represented podcasts, fan sites, video casts, and guilds, and anything that was about Tor together through banner exchanges. And then the whole concept behind Syndicate was we were trying to help syndicate news. So instead of like 5 billion WordPress sites regurgitating the Friday update, we were like, well, what if like maybe 3 or 4 sites do that, post them here, and then everyone could just do banner exchanges and then repost it on their site, kind of like a distribution model.
Yeah, the Tor Syndicate was very interesting. Kind of would you say that that's what threw Guild Umbra into the limelight?
I mean, probably, yeah. I mean, because without, shockingly, our guild was always going to be the first guild that was promoted on, the Empire side, because we were the very first guild to sign up, right?
Right, yeah.
And then, we had, a guild podcast that I had started really just to see if I could do it from a tech standpoint, because I just thought it was an interesting, fun nerd thing to do, I guess. But more so as I looked for it as an offline distribution on how I could get information out to my guild. And I just figured if anybody else wanted to listen in, they could just get the podcast version of a billion WordPress sites regurgitating the Friday update, right?
Yeah. Now
you must have some like amazing social networking abilities, because you've got your foot in the door of like a lot of different places.
Yeah, I was about to say, if there's anything Guild Umbra is known for, it's like harnessing that community. And we'll definitely be talking about that a lot. Our topics are set up to talk about how exactly you do that, because with MMOs, I mean, that is what they are for. It really is what makes an MMO, a good MMO or not so good, is really how strong the community is as a whole. But
Totally.
yeah, for sure. Anyway, I really want to address this elephant in the room because I don't know if you guys know this watching this, but this fool here got to play the pre-alpha build of the Elder Scrolls Online, which is crazy.
We hate you for it.
And we hate you.
I'm that fool.
Absolutely hate you for it. But yeah, we're wondering if you would like to talk about just how that experience was going into ZeniMax Online Studios, being able to test the game. Maybe tell us your favorite part of the tour.
Sure. What part do you want to start at? Because it's it could be as long.
We got time.
This is going to be a special episode, so time is no factor. So.
So like anything, Rome wasn't built in a day, and life, your guild, work, your love, whatever it is you're going to do is really built on your relationships with others, and if you put out good karma or positivity out there, it'll come back to you, kind of, for lack of a better word.
Yeah.
Without getting too preachy, but after tour launched, they had mixed reviews, and you've seen what's happened over the last year, so I won't beat that dead horse. But as soon as I had heard rumors prior to this year, so for 3 years now I'd heard that this game was coming out, even though they only officially announced last year, right? But through the people that I knew and the groups of people I knew that I had met through podcasting, social networking, going to E3, going to PAX and Comic-Con and those things, you kind of get to know a certain group of people. And so I'd kind of heard that it was in the works about 3 years ago, and just kind of kept in touch with some folks, tracking to see if that was true or if it was vaporware. So by the time I figured it was vaporware, I finally saw that their website had kind of popped up. So I was like, oh, I guess it is full on true.
Yeah.
And so I just reached out to some friends and told them about who we are, what it is that we do, and we'd be interested in trying to talk to them, to get an interview or whatever. And so lo and behold, before the event happened, they just kind of reached out and invited us up. So I guess it's kind of really like that. So other guilds or fan sites or podcasts or groups that are wanting to do something similar, I think really the key to success is to just figure out what it is that you do, be consistent, keep doing it, and then build up a list of contacts and relationships, and don't burn a bridge. Right. Realize that if, let's say, something is released and you don't like it, like another game that was released last year, you don't want to just completely say that their baby's ugly. If you're going to put criticism, you want to basically make it constructive criticism. I think this is messed up for this and this reason. Don't be like, oh, you're just stupid. That's not a way to win an argument, right? So I know it's probably really wordy and probably a lot more wordy than you probably wanted to hear, but if you read between the lines, that's pretty much how anybody could do it, if that makes any sense. So in terms of how it went down is, we got invited up. I didn't know who the other list of folks were. I was lucky because I lived within driving distance of ZeniMax, so I could just drive on over there. But they flew people in, put them up in hotels and stuff. I just drove up for the day. And so I can't even remember the exact date that it was, but I just drove up there the morning of, had no problem getting in, and just kind of hung out. And I think I was literally the first person to show up at the facility, so they were still trying to scramble and figure out what to do with me. And the very first person I met was a guy named Joe Barba, who's the director of community for ZeniMax. And the next person I met was Matt Firor, who's the president of ZeniMax. And I didn't know that's who it was at the time. But again, being just cordial and polite, you treat everybody with respect. I just was, telling them who I was, what my mission was. And, basically what my mission was to, learn about the community, meet the folks at ZeniMax, obviously get a chance to play if I could, but it wasn't the expectation. And just try to, talk to folks to figure out where they were coming from with their design plans, what it is that they're trying to accomplish in this game. And we can talk about it more in detail, I guess, through the podcast. With what that actually means, because that sounds like either just quite frankly dumb or just overly wordy. Because a game is more than just a game. There's going to be a theme to the game. There's going to be a purpose of the game, and there's going to be like what are the things that you're trying to accomplish. And then a lot of times you'll have development teams come from other groups there together, and so your game might be a spiritual successor. And we can definitely talk about that with what my impressions of this game is relative to the designers, because it is very distinct, and they will be the first to tell you. Yeah. Okay. I mean, do you want to talk about that now, or
we can get to it?
Okay.
I guess just you played the pre-alpha, right? So, are there any memorable parts that really just stick into your mind when it comes to what you played for the few hours you got to delve into the game?
Sure. So, basically, we all got together. We all introduced ourselves. We all got to meet everybody, and then they came in to just talked about what we were going to see from a high level, and then they did a quick playthrough so that we at least had an understanding of what their new UI was. But then they all just put us into seats, gave us like a little, not really a script, but a little hot, cheat sheet that kind of explained what buttons do what.
Yeah.
And they logged us in, and we went, and basically we were given the option of two character archetypes. One that was a soldier. I forget the exact name, so you have to forgive me. And then one that was
Dragonite.
Yeah, Dragonite.
Templar.
Yeah, and a Templar. Yeah, so one that was basically a healer, and one that was basically a traditional warrior. But because it's Elder Scrolls, you can play them almost any way you want. So I could have been a fire mage with my Templar, so. But the archetypes just help kind of guide you at first, so you can kind of figure out what type of play style you want. So I guess the thing that hit me in the face right off the bat, that was the most memorable thing, which might have been small to some people, was the fact that this game, in my opinion, looks better than Skyrim.
That's what we've been hearing.
That is what blows my mind right there. Like, the guys at Elder Scrolls Off the Record said the same thing too. And I was actually going to include that comment in a previous video, but I was afraid that it was just hype. But, wow. That blows my mind, especially on, an MMO-like engine that's supposed to be made to play on a vast array of, different PCs and stuff. What kind of PCs did they must have had you playing on really high-end rigs, and I mean, what the Elder Scrolls Off the Record guys were saying was that, the gameplay that's out right now and the screenshots we're seeing, it doesn't do it justice. I think that was either Elder Scrolls Off the Record or Jesse Cox said that.
I think it was actually both.
Was it both of them? Yeah, which... that's funny. Then, what are they taking those screenshots on, and what are they taking those videos from, Wouldn't they want us to show the best that they can, or...
When they do that, they're using fraps, and fraps will usually, kill frame rates and make things not look as crisp. So I'm only assuming, not knowing, that they used fraps as the tool, which is just very seldom ever going to make it as crisp. It never translates well. I don't even remember what kind of rig it was on, but I'm sure it was good. Obviously, they're going to try to put something out there so that it's cranking out at a good speed. Because if you have press and you have fan sites in, you want it as good as possible. So I am sure it's one of those situations where if the better rig you have, the better game experience you're going to have from a graphical sense. But they have definitely they wrote their own engine from the ground up, so obviously that helps. A lot of people were scared and they heard that they were using the Hero engine.
Oh yeah, I was one of those people. I was terrified. They're using the engine that they use for SWTOR, which very cartoony and very much MMO.
And so they use that, but they don't use it for the game. They use that as like a blueprint or a mock-up tool to explain or investigate how-to scenarios for the game development. And then once all the powers that be agree on, okay, this, dungeon works great, or this mechanic is working the way we think it should, then what they do is they go reconstruct it in their own custom-built engine. So their custom-built engine, and this is me putting words in their mouth, so take that for what it's worth, but this is basically me saying what they kind of explained to us, so I'm ad-libbing here.
Well, that's where, most of our information, if not all, comes from, is from secondhand sources, since we ourselves weren't there, because, we were nobodies then, and we're just now starting to get our foot in the door of the community. So we know where you're coming from.
We've been there. We live that every day.
Well, so long story short, they've optimized their server code and their client code so that it being built from the ground up, it's meant to be a massively online experience. The code that's written is custom built to understand and know that it's supposed to work with multiple people, multiple accounts, multiple sessions, multiple threads working and interacting with each other. So it's built with that in mind, whereas Hero had some of that, but it wasn't optimized. So Hero, you're buying a third party's tool and then you're doing custom code on it to basically make an MMO with it, whereas these guys built their own code from the ground up. So they, the fundamental difference is like PlantSide 2 with Sony Online Entertainment, they did the same thing. And so that's the reason why you can get
yeah, definitely shows
playing together. Now, does that mean everything is perfect? No, I mean, problems will arise, just nothing is perfect. But for the most part, PlantSide 2 runs really, really great. Same thing with this. These guys wrote it specifically for this, and they don't have a name for it yet. So because it's ZeniMax, I've always told them, I've dubbed it the Zengen.
Zengen. Yeah, I like that. That could catch on.
So, to me, it just looks so much better than Skyrim. And when I even told them that they were actually kind of shocked just to hear that. They were like, well, they're happy to hear it, but I don't think that it wasn't a competition, if that makes any sense. They weren't trying to be better. They just built the best engine they could, and they're just happy to hear that people think that it looks better. The other big thing is the UI, and I know that you guys got controversial a couple weeks ago about the no hands.
Yes, we did. One of our more notorious episodes for sure.
Exactly. You have the hands in the first person view, but the thing is when you don't actually, and I don't remember which button it was, like you actually have to hit a button to make the UI pop up. When there's no UI, you don't even see yourself. You're in first person view. All you see is just the environment. That's an awesome thing. I mean, I have never experienced anything that just brings you into the game more than the fact of not having a UI.
Which is such a radical thing for MMOs, because MMOs, we're used to an overabundance of UI. I mean, just where the test games, they're known for immersing yourself into the universe, and part of that is the limited UI. I actually thought the UI was limited enough in Skyrim as it was, with just your stamina bars, and then you got your compass and your radical. But turns out that people were still making mods where they limited that even more. So it's definitely a very important part of the Elder Scrolls, and I'm glad to hear that it looked good from where you were sitting.
Oh, definitely. Now to be fair, I've had tons of people in my guild already beat me up like as if I'm in charge of stuff over there.
Oh yeah, I'm sure you get an abundance of emails.
There's no hand. What do you mean there's no hands? Well, I don't know. Talk to them, but whatever, So they're taking a risk. They're taking a risk of alienating their existing single-player fans, and they're taking a risk of alienating traditional MMO fans that may not know Elder Scrolls universe as well. They've done is they've made what they think is the best choice to make it more MMO-like, in the sense that when you're by yourself and you're doing by yourself things, you're in single person view and you have no UI. But then when you're maybe walking around and you're fighting something, you're in like a third person view, and it's very minimal, right? It's a very minimalistic, almost like Guild Wars 2 kind of panel at the bottom. So you don't have a whole lot of choices or options. You have a lot of customization that you can do within that little 5 or 6 bars, but you don't have like 700 different attacks.
Which are all situational.
Or charge you to unlock more.
Yeah, exactly. So terrible. You got to remember, this is an MMO. So the thing is when you're single player, and I think I told you this before, and this is my opinion, when you're single player, you're a god of that game. There's nobody greater who's drunk more beer and killed more people and been with more, and you don't necessarily have to worry as much about what's sneaking up behind you that's bigger and badder than you, because you can turn around and then start fighting. Whereas in an MMO, especially if you have PvP, which does not act according to the script like an NPC would, you kind of normally want that third person view so that you can have a much better situational awareness. And so
Oh, it's imperative, most definitely. And that's why it's great to have you on here because, and you told me you're very much first and foremost, like you're an MMO player, you would say. Whereas I personally, I can't speak for Kyle, but I personally am first an RPer. And so to have both of our different views, like, agreed, third person, it's imperative, you have to have it. But and then there's other people, you know, like the RPers that, you know, want to have that personal experience, and they're not looking like I'm personally. I don't care for the edge in combat when I'm just going out into the world exploring, killing mobs, and questing. Like, I would sacrifice my advantage to get that bonus immersion any day of the week. It's kind of like the same thing, like, okay, we have keyboard and mouse and we have a controller. You know, keyboard and mouse, much more precise. If you're going to be competitive, it makes sense in every game. Controller, however, a lot more relaxing. You know, you get to kick back, use the controller, and you'll sacrifice that competitive edge just to be more comfortable in your gaming experience. So, you know, you have two different groups of people like this. You have the MMO guys, and then the RPers, and then, of course, all the people in between. And what we've been saying, you know, we would love to see that first person and the third person, the best of both worlds, to make this truly an Elder Scrolls game that's online. And if we see that, I think it's going to bring a tear to my eye, man. I'll say it now. It's going to be beautiful. My two favorite things, MMOs and RPGs, and beautiful matrimony.
You know, it's kind of funny that you say that because I have my main PvPers in my guild, and if you pay close attention to Elder Scrolls Off the Record, the different stuff that they stream, they're all playing Chivalry right now, which is basically a first-person...
Oh yeah, Kyle and I are familiar with it. We're actually doing a Let's Play on the channel right now. That game is too much fun, dude. Oh my god.
Yeah, so the hidden thing is that's what a lot of people are playing now to get ready for the combat in Elder Scrolls Online. So
that and Terra. I've also been dabbling in Terra because that's also an action MMO. So It has some...
that we've been playing a lot of. So if you're wanting to practice combat for Elder Scrolls Online, a lot of Chivalry, a lot of Terra.
Yep. So since we're on that topic, what can you tell us about the combat experience you had in ESO? Was it pretty smooth?
Yeah, I mean, I didn't have any problems with it at first. The big thing that I like about it is in you know, Skyrim or things like that, I'm usually playing in first person, which, you know, you can play in third person for the combat, but normally I do play in the first person like you with my little hands. And it takes you a while. I would say it takes about a 20-minute, 30-minute learning curve, unless you've practiced, to do that transition. Because, you know, in traditional Elder Scrolls, you're used to kind of seeing the way the person's swinging their whatever at you, so that you can either dodge or parry or attack or what have you. Well, in this, you're doing the exact same thing, because remember, this is an Elder Scrolls game first that has been brought to the online space. And so you will see them wind up attacks just like in regular Skyrim, but you might be in third-person view. So you got to just kind of get used to the timing of it, especially because you are looking at it in a third-person view. But this is the thing that made it awesome after I finally kind of got it and my brain clicked, is the standard in most MMOs is you fight an NPC or whatever and they auto-face you. So, you know, you're sitting there hitting them. Even if you hit them from behind, you have to be stealthed or have charged them or something in order to get an attack on them from the rear. But then as soon as that attack is done, they're auto-facing you no matter how many times you run around them.
So they're always turning towards you.
Yeah. In this game, if they wind up and you like either dodge or parry, or you just, you know, dodge, I guess, get completely out of the way, they can actually, through physics, swing and miss and actually have their momentum take them out of position. And so now they're completely open and vulnerable from their flank. And now you can turn around and just unload on them. And so many times when I was playing, I'd see them kind of wind up, I'd wait, I'd dodge them, and now I'm getting a flank bonus or an attack from the rear bonus from hitting them. And so that made the game and the combat engaging. And for the first time ever, I was like, that little simple thing is a game changer.
Yeah, man. I mean, my problem with MMOs in the past has been, like, the combat feels too floaty, you know? It doesn't... You're taking turns, you got the auto-attack thing on, too, and it's just... there's not any weight behind it. And, you know, the thing we're used to in the test games is, you know, you throw your sword at a guy, it hits his shield, you know, it feels more realistic than just the floaty MMO combat. But yeah, in addition to what you said about how it's going to reward you for that flank bonus and stuff like that, I think it's also true, Kyle confirmed me on this, but you're going to get rewarded extra experience for the better you play, which is great.
The other thing too is normally in games, if you have a shield and you blocked and it's no damage and now you're attacking. In this, if they hit you hard enough on a shield, you'll take a little damage, and vice versa. If you hit them hard enough, they might block it, but you still did some damage because, you know, it was just such a hard attack.
The skill bar. We know there's like 6 skills with an ultimate. Did that feel like there was enough variety when you were playing?
Yeah, people are afraid of a Guild Wars 2 like situation where you don't have enough abilities and it's not fun. I know there's some people in the comments that are saying, 6 skills, I don't know. This doesn't seem like enough to me.
So, I mean, from my perspective, I started at level 1 and got to like level 8 or 9 or something. We played for like 4 hours. And there were guys who got even farther than I did. It was enough for me. But, you know, I didn't get that high level.
Yeah, I guess it's an unfair question to ask, because, I mean, how much time did you guys actually do a hands-on with the pre-alpha?
It was about right around maybe 3.5, 4 hours, something like that.
Okay, yeah, so, I mean, you're not going to get bored with skills that fast unless you're some kind of, like, you know, ADD person.
Yeah. Now, here's the reason why I wouldn't be overly concerned is because, you know, they said they're going to be doing all kinds of stuff for social networking, and it's my understanding, although I don't remember an exact quote, so take this for what it's worth. I want to say that they're going to try to set it up so that people can do what ZeniMax and Bethesda are known for, is the modding community. So I'm assuming that, you know, they might be able to let that be an add-on or something that you mod yourself.
Oh man, that would be great. If they could bring in that modding community somehow. I actually haven't read personally anything about implementing any mod stuff, but oh gosh, because that is a big part. And you play the test games on your PC, correct?
On the PC, you're talking about when I was there? Just want to make sure.
Oh no, I'm talking about the Elder Scrolls games in general, like Skyrim and stuff. You play on your PC.
All kinds of like lightsaber mods. And
oh
stuff.
Yeah, just half of that game, like I guess you could say Skyrim's end game are mods. Because, I mean, I can't tell you how many hours I've sat in front of Steam, flipping through the pages, and it's crazy the amount of creativity out there when you invite the masses to, you know, use the tools in the game to create. It's, oh god, I'm tearing up again. This is, oh god.
I think that mods that they would do would be things where like you create it and then they'd have to probably approve it, kind of thing.
Oh, for sure. Yeah, we couldn't have any like there would definitely have to be a net there separating the crappy lore-breaking type mods from actual legit ones.
I know this is a very particular question that you may not remember, but when you kill something, be say Imperial soldier, doesn't matter, and you loot them, is it just like Skyrim where you can take whatever they're actually wearing and that's your stuff? Or do they have just like a random loot table?
I think it was stuff that would be on their person that would make sense. I don't remember exactly. But, you know, if you're fighting like a human, it would drop something that a human should have, like, you know, like boots or or sword, whereas like I think, you know, I'd kill like bugs and stuff. It would be you know, parts of their body, maybe like jewelry or stuff like that. But I don't remember exactly, but I do remember the fact that they would be dropping, you know, kind of normal stuff, and it wasn't the very detailed list though. You know, like Skyrim, like, do you want to pick this or that up? But I mean, you still had the option of what it is that you wanted to pick up, but it seemed to be more in line per mob type.
We're used to seeing that in MMOs, so like you're killing a boar or something and he'll drop animal type things and you're killing a human. But I think what Kyle was getting at is, like, if you're killing a bandit that's in, like, let's say wearing leather armor, full leather armor, if you kill him, can you actually swipe those specific items like in the Elder Scrolls series? I'm gonna guess no, because it's an MMO. They're gonna have to they can't let you just loot any item off the character
Right,
you just kill.
It's like maybe like one piece or whatever.
Yeah.
So for whatever reason, you were fighting a naked guy with one boot.
Right, yeah. That would be very hard to set up in an MMO, and I'm not sad to see that's not in the game. But as we're talking about items and stuff like that, and things you can play around with in the world, did you was most of your time spent playing the pre-alpha spent outdoors, running around exploring, or did you get a chance to go inside like some, I don't know, like taverns or shops or anything like that? Did you get any indoor play experience?
Yeah, so it was pre-alpha, so not every single function was working. So I didn't really, I think I only dealt with a vendor once, and it was really more just to sell stuff. Some people actually crafted, I did not, because I was just busy around trying to see as much stuff as I could.
Yeah, I don't think I would have crafted either. I would have been like running like a wild man in some direction. I don't know if I would have been that patient.
But one thing you could do is like you can go to vendors, and just like in Skyrim or Elder Scrolls, you could like steal stuff off of the table, grab books.
Yeah.
So they're all around. So like, if you go to the website and they just introduced that king, and you click on him, and it's got that book kind of format. Same thing in the game. When you pick up books, that's how you read books. I went into dungeons. I went into a cave, a cavern. I went inside of people's houses, and then I explored a lot through the outside.
Was that stuff instanced? Like when you went into a cave, was there a quick loading screen like we're used to on Skyrim and stuff?
I want to say that there was. I can't remember perfectly, but I want to say that there was a real small load time to get through the door kind of thing.
Yeah.
And so were those personal experiences, the dungeons
No.
then?
Players weren't there with me.
Players weren't
Okay.
there with you. Okay, cool.
So it's basically just to load the elements and everything, but you're still with people, so it's not really instanced. It's just that loading screen to kind of let the server know you entered there and load all the stuff.
Yeah, and that might be a phasing thing, but
Yeah.
so there were other people who I didn't even know who they were, but they were in that event that were walking around. And of course everyone's got like Grunach is my name, I'm the warrior. I'm like, well, I don't know who Grunach is. What I mean? So you'd see people walking around. We were trying to group, but I couldn't figure out where the group request was going. So I was trying to group with you, but you were too stupid. I was like, oh, okay.
All right, so back to the items thing. Something that made me a little upset about MMOs was I'd be walking around, like in Stormwind and walk into a library, and I mean there'd be shelves and shelves of books and stuff like that, and you weren't able to pick them up and read them. Now we already know that we're going to be able to do that in the Elder Scrolls Online, but the items around, when you were in that shop and stuff, the items all sitting around on the tables, whether it be a candlestick or anything down to a sweet roll, were you able to move and play with every little thing in there, or were some items static? Because what I find interesting is that actually Skyrim actually has some static items where, there's certain items like candlesticks and stuff that you can't move for some reason. They're glued to the table. But how restricted was your access to be able to manipulate every item you came across?
So there wasn't a whole lot there, but I'd say the majority.
I know, yeah, it's probably an unfair question because it's pre-alpha and stuff, so...
Yeah, the majority of things I was able to touch. I do remember there being some things that were not removable, and I think it's just an itemization thing. They can only put so many assets into the world before it would probably bog down some database somewhere.
Totally. Technical limitation for sure there.
But I mean, all the stuff that was of any use I could pick up, like things I could pocket or would want to pocket. I didn't steal anything just because I didn't feel like going to jail or whatever the penalty was.
Okay,
at the
so
time.
you didn't run into the crime system.
No, I did not. I played goody two shoes.
Paragon route. You are very much a paragon, yeah.
But the thing was, but a lot of the different things were there I could pick up. Now there were books. Not all the books were lore books where you could pick them up and read them, but there was a good amount of them that was. So, and I don't know if that's just because that's just the way it's going to be, or that's going to be a limitation that it can only scale so much, or if it was the fact that it's pre-alpha and they only put so much out.
Yeah, I mean, as much as I would like to be able to manipulate everything, I would totally understand it from like a technical standpoint. And even being able to manipulate, the important things, it's not very important that I pick up my candlestick and move it around. Although it is part of the signature like test freedom, I'd be willing to let that go for... It's a series of compromises, really, when you're talking about bringing a single-player experience like this to the MMO market. So, but yeah. Did you actually get a chance to open up a book and see what the graphic looked like when you were doing that?
Sure. I mean, the books looked, really good. They looked quite a lot like the book that you can read now if you go to Elder Scrolls Online and you look at the king and, the little lore that you have out there.
Oh, cool.
The part of the reason also that they probably limit that is because they have to put the object out there in a manner so that multiple people can manipulate and access the same asset. Right. So there's only one book on liches or whatever. And then, my account, your account have to go be able to pick up that asset and read it. And then if you loot it before I do, well, is it going to be there for me to loot kind of thing? So.
Right. Okay, and then another question I have to ask. So I'm guessing when they spawned you, they just spawned you guys all in the same general area.
Yep.
What was the first thing you did? Did you just run off and try to find... did you stumble across any organic quest? And what was your questing experience like itself?
So without giving up too much, and I don't remember if it was NDA or not, but I guess to cover my butt.
Well, the Elder Scrolls Off the Record, they talked about they stumbled into a cave, and apparently there was some necromancer that was taunting them and stuff like that. And, it wasn't a quest that was given, but just a random event, Did you stumble across anything similar to that?
Yeah. So basically you start off in the middle of, like, crap's breaking loose, crap's hit the fan, and, you're kind of just off on your way. It wasn't like, most games where you just kind of start in a starting area and you go and you start killing 10 rats until you find a guy who says kill 10 more rats kind of scenario.
Yeah, get me 10 bare asses, as Total Biscuit would say.
Yeah, you start out and they're like, the crap has hit the fan, and you immediately have a reason why you need to start doing something.
Cool. So it's always trying to push you forward and get you going.
And, like, basically you get out of the little starter mission and they're like, okay, well, now your next thing is you got to go see this person who's going to help us with all this crap that just went down, because, you're still trying to figure it out. And then along the way in ZeniMax fashion, along the way to go to that person that you have to see to get you out of this bad situation, you keep running into these vistas and you keep seeing caves or dungeons and you keep seeing like other buildings, and then sooner or later you kind of get off a track of what you were starting to do, and now you start talking with NPCs or you start fighting stuff, and boom, you're in Elder Scrolls, right?
Oh yeah. If there's anything the Elder Scrolls is good at, it's giving us all ADD and saying, ooh, shinies everywhere, freaking just take off. So you could have had the option, though, to completely, because I know a lot of test players out there, they make it a point in their gaming to ignore the main storyline altogether. And they love the fact that they can just go and run. So, if you wanted, you could have just ignored that main quest, right?
Oh, yeah. I kind of was trying to stick to it as much as possible, but then I just kind of got stuck doing all this other side stuff and finding new things. And I'd start talking to NPCs there, and grabbing their quest, and I'm like, oh well, this will only take 5 minutes. Meanwhile, an hour later, you still haven't finished in that area.
Right.
All right, guys, we are moving away from pre-alpha and going into some speculation, opinions, and all that jazz.
I could do that pre-alpha talk all day. We have to do this again because oh gosh, there's just so much.
All right, let's talk about guilds in ESO. So, what features in ESO would you like to see or have seen that would benefit someone like you that is like a leader of a guild?
Sure. So I didn't see any guild features while I was playing because, like I said, it was so low level. But things that are just paramount that I think are just a must for this game to be really top-notch and friendly to guilds is you've got to have a great guild management system in terms of the interface. You got to be able to do a lot of things that another game that came out a little over a year ago just didn't have at all. You have to have a guild bank. You have to have the ability to whisper and invite people to group from your guild list. You have to be able to have more than just guild chat.
Yeah.
Ideally, there'll be guild systems where there's guild ranking and guild progression, things that your guild can do to either manufacture or accomplish things as a guild that will then in turn provide you benefits, like, you know, your guild gathered 1 million pieces of wood or whatever, or they built this thing and now you all get +1 to intelligence or something, you know, something to give us a goal, a carrot.
A benefit to doing all this stuff. You
like
want to
that.
see some kind of achievement or
The
something
carrot on
that...
the stick, yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Because at the same time, that makes it reason enough for people who don't have guilds to join guilds because they want those benefits. So I think those are probably the, you know, that's probably the most important thing that we need or should want. I mean, the secondary thing is the pipe dream, because I just don't see many people making it in MMOs anymore. Is the guild hall. That seems to be all the
Yeah.
notion.
My old Guild Wars 1 days of the guild hall. I remember that.
Oh yeah, I mean, you talk to almost any MMO developer now, they're like, "What? What's that?" You know, like,
And it's sad.
yeah. So, and why it serves no in-game purpose other than social. It's a reason to play the game without beating somebody over the head.
Yeah, that's why Kyle and I were talking about throwing your guild hall smack dab in the middle of Cyrodiil and be like, hey, defend this with your life, you know?
I mean, there's something that could be said there, because you can take keeps in Cyrodiil. And I hope we're not getting into that too soon, but you know, you could look at that as your guild hall, I guess.
Are they actually adding that in the feature? I think it was Jesse Cox that had recommended that as a feature, is that guilds can actually take over forts and stuff themselves and claim it as their own.
So, yeah, so he brought that up when we were actually talking. So, I mean, I was there with him. We were talking to, ZeniMax about what are some of the features that, you know, we think are kind of important. And so I don't know if they're doing it so that the guild itself can do it. I know that your faction will be able to take over the keep, right?
Right.
That would probably have to be something that would be instanced, you know, where, okay, this is the entrance to your guild for this keep or something. I don't know how they would do it, you know, unless it's some kind of persistent thing, but then you run into a real estate issue, right?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Too many guilds, too many halls.
Well, the thing is, though, we were talking about this earlier, of course, with magic of editing. We were talking about this earlier in the week of Cyrodiil kind of being separated into what they call campaigns, which is basically sort of the same thing as server phasing, where there's different instances of Cyrodiil where usually the same guilds will be placed in the same campaign, so you actually get to know some of the other guilds. So that may kind of alleviate some of the problems of people fighting over the same keep and, you know, not having enough keeps for guilds to capture for themselves.
Right.
So that might be one of the ways they're getting around that kind of issue and allow guilds to actually claim forts for themselves and hang their banners up and stuff.
So I've had other guilds invite me to work in their campaigns with them, but I thought that was like an RP thing. I didn't. I guess I had not put enough thought into what they were really saying. So that makes
Apparently, it'll be a feature, which will be pretty cool.
yeah, that totally clears up a lot for me now. So see, I learn all kinds of stuff.
Speaking of features, what are your thoughts, and I'm totally reading this right off the paper, what are your thoughts on ESO's embrace of social connectivity?
Oh, I think it's great. I think that's everything that people in 2013 want and need. People want to be at work and say, hey, instead of a smoke break, I want to go check in, you know, for 5 minutes and just see what's the status of the keep. Do I need to, you know, worry when I get home, or can I like relax when I get home? You know, it's interesting. Or do I need to make a few calls? And I know it's terrible to say during work, but you get my point.
Yeah.
You want to be able to check in to see how things are going, because, you know, if you have any type of life at all, you know, you do want to unplug, but, you know, you still are nerdy enough where you're like, well, let me just go check on things, right?
Yeah.
I think that from everything that they said and the abilities that they're going to leave open, or at least intend to try to make open through some kind of API or XML feed or something, allow add-ons, which I also call mods. They're going to allow you to either build or have that, or they're going to have some kind of iOS application that's going to allow you to check.
That's what I'm thinking.
Of your character's progression, possibly your guild, what's going on with Cyrodiil. PlanetSide 2, with SOE had said that they were going to do all that, and they demoed like this app for the iPad. I still don't see it. I don't know where it is, if it's out there. And then, another game that was released about a little over a year ago, completely said from day one they're not opening up any APIs or anything social, nothing, and they killed their community from day one.
Of course.
Destroyed themselves from day one. And these guys have completely, and Matt Firewar says it in the video, have completely embraced social media so much to the point that you will be given options when you create your account to add your Twitter tag or your Facebook stuff, and I couldn't remember if he said like email or something, but they're looking at all the different possibilities to exhaust that will allow you to basically connect your contacts and stuff so that you could keep in touch with in the game and outside the game at the same time, and then maybe you could invite people to the game who know you that don't play the game. It's just they're not leaving anything out of the realm of possibility. Doesn't mean they're going to get to everything, doesn't mean they're going to implement everything, but they're at least taking advantage of social media, because social media is not decreasing, it's not shrinking, it's not going away.
Oh yeah. We're talking. Sorry, go ahead.
I was just gonna say, I just hope they don't go to the point where it's wall spamming or feed spamming of just, oh, I've done this and this, and I did this quest and achievement, post that on there, and also like I don't want to get a bunch of notifications in the game. Do you want to send this on your wall? Do you want to put this on your wall? Tell your friends about all this stuff. I don't want all that immersion breaking stuff either, though.
I'm sure those will all be options, like if they did do that sort of thing, because I know what you're talking about. Like, I don't know, I'll admit it, I've played a Facebook game in my day, and they always prompt you, I can, some of them don't even ask you some of the games, they're just like, they start throwing stuff on your wall, like, oh, you completed this quest and stuff like that, and this little Facebook, oh great, now all my friends know that I'm playing this dorky Facebook game. Anyway, it's funny how we're talking about this social media stuff in an MMO like this, like it's some revolutionary idea, when it's common sense, With an MMO that's a social experience as it is, I don't know, I haven't played an MMO that has embraced social connectivity like this before, and I kind of ask myself, well, why not? Why haven't they? It just seems like common sense.
Every single thing I've seen from, speaking with these guys over the last, few years is it's just about control. You have a lot of game companies that are run by suits, that a lot of the game companies, their management structure, definitely their PR and their marketing folks don't always play games and MMOs, so they don't necessarily always understand the product. And I would say a large amount of time, and you can look at this game that just released a little over a year ago, they don't understand their gaming community. They don't understand the people with the dollars. They don't understand it. They look at charts and darts and they just go based on Keynesian theory of economics. The one thing I noticed, talking with the guys from ZeniMax, that really impressed me is that these guys are gamers. Matt Firewar, the president of this company, is a gamer. Like, you talk to him and you hear his passion, and you hear like just the little things that he says. This guy plays these games. He knows. So in addition to developing them, they know all. They play these games. They know what it is that the gamers want. And I think that is the reason. I think that they're assuming that people are going to take control, and they're going to have lost control. And that's the first thing that Web 2.0, which is Web 1.0 technology was all about sharing resources and access. Everything moving forward from Web 2.0 and the cloud and social networking is all assuming that you already have connectivity and sharing of resources. Now it's about collaboration. That's the next big group think, and where you need to take your thought process as you develop tech from 2013 on, right?
Totally.
Yeah. Okay, let's see. Other things we may want to see in ESO for guilds. Of course, guild emblems, be it on like armor or maybe some capes or something going on. I guess we already talked about seeing something in the form of influence points that we see in Guild Wars 2, where you do something as a guild, you get points toward your guild to like unlock benefits or something like that, like increased experience gain. I'm sure we want to see something like that. Also, a custom ranking system would be good. What is your take on the mega server? How do you think the mega server will affect guilds?
So, the only thing, I mean, at face value, it doesn't bother me, and I think it'll work fine, because you can just look at what CCP has done for, a decade with Eve, one shard, called Serenity, and they haven't had, to my knowledge, any problems. So I don't think they have technical problems. I think that all they're going to have is maybe social, political problems, because in a game like Eve that is one server, one shard, it's just one game type, right? It's PvP. Even the forums.
It's space and PvP, which makes it very easy for them.
Yeah, I mean, so, even if you're on the forums in CCP, you're like doing PvP. Whereas with this game, the only thing that I'm trying to figure out is how they're going to separate it, or so that you're going to have PvPers and PvE content guys and then role players, and not have them collide. That's what I think is going to be the challenging part. So technically, I know it could be done. I'm just not exactly sure how they'll do it. So I'm assuming, speculating. Some areas will just be concrete. So, for example, Cyrodiil is going to be a PvP zone no matter what you are, right? And then some areas are going to be RP areas, and that'll be where they separate the people who don't want to do RP. That's pretty much it.
Yeah, there's that, and then there's also the server phasing technology that they're using a little bit that we've seen from WoW and stuff, where they phase out certain areas and things based on what you've done previously. They're also doing the server phasing in this game, but on a much grander scale. And then we also have that little questionnaire you fill out when you create your character, so it'll put you with like-minded gamers, be it RPers, PvPers, or PvE-focused people. So that'll help with that whole standpoint of putting you with specific players that you will mesh well with.
Yep.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see. That questionnaire will be interesting.
Yeah.
I wonder if it's going to really work how they want it to work, because if it did, I mean, then you really could play with a bunch of RPers, and I could totally see what you're saying. Like, no matter what, Cyrodiil is that cement PvP. You're not going to go to Cyrodiil to RP. It's just not going to work. But outside of that, if you answered questionnaire where you're just a nerd about your game, you're talking with these and thous and stuff, you can play with other people that are like-minded like that.
I'm curious how this whole server phasing thing's going to affect guild recruitment, though, because apparently it phases you in the order of guild list, friends list, and then like-minded gamers. So if you're not in a guild, how are you going to find other people that are?
Well, I want to say you can be in multiple guilds.
We can, but
so you could join as many guilds as you want, and in that way, when you want to RP, you're going to just be in the phases where your guild is that RPs, and then when you want to do PvP, you'll go to your guild that PvPs. So I guess I don't know. I'm not exactly sure. That's how I think it might work. How
does Umbra do its guild recruitment? Is that all? Do they fill out apps on your site? Is that how that works? Okay.
Yeah, we have a. It used to be much stricter. We relaxed a little bit. Now we're tightening it back up. But a lengthy application, maybe about 10 or 15 questions, and we have guild policies that are in a couple of different sections of our website. And we say, first question is, have you read our guild policy? Second question is, we start asking you questions about stuff that's in our policy. If you can't, answer stuff about the policies in our guild and the history of our guild, then you're an automatic no-go.
Okay. I just wanted to say, for those interested in possibly joining Guild Umbra, I'm sure we'll have a link down in the description for the website to go ahead and do that, and also gain any other information on the guild itself.
Yeah, the great thing is that, because I I don't know about you, Kyle, but I plan on filling out an app for Guild Umbra. I like their tagline, no cream puffs allowed. I mean, come on, man.
What about sweet rolls, though? Are those allowed?
Well, but hold on, I gotta read it, because... So the disclaimer is, if you're an emotionally needy cream puff that gets your guild easily, then this is not the guild for you.
So don't be sensitive.
That sold me alone right there. Boom. Filling out the app today, man. Because, I'm very much looking forward to the fact that we can join multiple guilds. Because Kyle and I were talking earlier, the Shoddy Cast Guild is going to be very much more of a social guild. You're going to be in there to talk with, fellow fans, and we're going to set up events and stuff like that, too. Don't get us wrong, but it'll be great to, if you want to go join that raiding guild or that PvP-centered guild, that you're going to be able to join multiple guilds. Very important aspect.
And, it's kind of funny you say that, because alliances are building now. So it's a great time to get in there.
For sure, for sure.
All right, next topic, still on the whole mega server thing, is notoriety. How do you set yourself apart from other people on this whole massive mega server? Like, how do you make your name known? So, like, in a PvP setting, how do you make it so if someone sees your name, they recognize you, and they're like, oh shit, and then they run the other way? It's like, how is that going to be possible in such a massive server?
It is definitely going to be harder, for sure. And the only thing I can think of, and it doesn't mean this is right, is you have to try to figure out what it is that you want to be when you grow up.
Yeah.
And, so, for example, if you say the Shoddycast Guild is going to be social, then the chances are they may or may not ever go to Cyrodiil. But if they do go to Cyrodiil, they're there to have fun fighting with everyone else, but they're probably not necessarily like, okay, well, I mean, if you can't get this keep, then you're nothing. That's a totally different mindset. That's it. Goon Squad or Goon Swarm, whatever, that, the big baddest guild from Eve, they'll probably have like 400 or 500 people. They'll probably all have Goon or something in their name, and they're gonna live and breathe, and they're gonna fight for days and days, and they'll have people from around the world fighting just to make sure that keep is taken, and so that that, like, when you see those guys, they're bringing the pain. That's really. Oh, yeah. That's really the way it is. I mean, the way that we did it in another game that came out about a year ago. Is we would just go into PvP, their version of like an arena, and they for whatever reason you couldn't do eight pre-mates, you had to do 4-man pre-mates, but we just lived on the PvP, their little instance of PvP instancing for arena, and we just would just dominate people, just kick people in the teeth, like for 10, 12, 8 hours, 18 hours a day.
I hated getting stuck on a pre-made.
Oh, yeah. God.
Oh, my God.
You were the one raping me.
And so that's just, what we did. And I got to be honest, I didn't plan on a PvP guild, just what it turned out to be.
Yeah.
And it was through having just people who were just really awesome at it that it turned. We like used to dominate our server before like every friggin' server got shut down. For PvP. And we would like come into instances and people would be like, oh, great, Umbra's here. I mean, that's some weird stuff, dude.
I know.
That's those moments that I don't want to lose, too, that at the same time, it's like, man, when you enter in, because I remember seeing a pre-made, and if I spotted a certain guild name, I'm like, that's it, man, I'm done. We're done. Just lay down your arms now.
Yeah, and like I said, we used to be that guild, for about 6 months, we were that guild. I mean, it's not that way anymore, but it was cool, and it's just from going in there and being consistent. I mean, another way to do it is, I don't really know how the crafting economy is going to go. So, for example, I knew that you could craft with a bit that we played, but let's say, the game is out and now we're actually getting a chance to develop the economy, the macro and micro economy. You could be the guild that controls resource X or Y that might be super rare, and your guild's the guild that we go to for this potion of badassery, right? That's another way to do it. I don't know if they're going to limit it to that in terms of the rarity of mats relative to certain areas, but I mean, that's another way to do it. So I mean, you're not stuck in the ways that you can make sure your guild is known. Like I said, in this other game that came out, we were known for being a badass PvP guild, which I didn't ever plan. It just happened that way. Shoddy Cats could be known as the guild that has the most fun, because that's the guild that on Saturdays from 9 p.m. to 1 a.m. we're sitting there getting our sip on while chilling in Cyrodiil.
Oh, yeah.
We might be
Word.
kicking heads in. We might be getting our asses kicked. But the point is we're all on the same TeamSpeak or Mumble server, just talking crap and having a good time. And then, as the waves, come in and out of the keep, we're just cracking up. That is a fun time, and that's what my guild does now. We get in, we play a different game every week, like on Friday night, like Eve, or we beta test something, or we play, Terror or whatever. Half the time losing because we're so drunk or stupid. The point is we're having fun because we're just talking with our virtual friends. I've got a guy named Jesse Newton who I've been playing with since 2007. I've never met the guy, but we've played MMOs together for that long. That's an amazing thing.
Still like one of your best buds, even though you haven't met him.
Yeah, So I mean, that's what it's all about. And I think that you guys can be a social guild to have the most fun. You don't have to be stuck. You don't have to put yourself in this prison like, well, we got to be PvP gods. No, you could be raiding gods, whatever.
So does Guild Umbra have a faction in mind, an alliance in mind?
So right now, we're leaning heavily towards Aldmeri.
Yeah. Welcome to the fold.
It's Aldmeri. Elder Scrolls Online off the record is Aldmeri. You guys are Aldmeri. We're heavily leaning towards.
It's gonna be the party, man. That is the party faction. I'm telling you.
Built-in alliance from Hades right there.
Jesus.
My poor Argonian's going to be by himself.
And it's for a couple of reasons, to be quite frank. Is I was initially wanting to be Ebonheart because I wanted to be a Nord because I played Skyrim, but then I got to thinking, well, everyone's going to want to be a Nord.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And then I started thinking about this other game that got released a little over a year ago and how everybody wanted to go one faction, and I know what it's like to be on the biggest faction. It's cool at first, but then it starts to suck because you have no one to play with or play against.
I think I know exactly what you're talking about. Getting stuck playing the same map over and over again.
Yes.
So I guess we obviously know Daggerfall's the least popular one. Do you think having a lower population like that, possibly half the population of the other ones, is going to affect PvP at all?
So I think a couple of things is going to happen. I think initially, so basically, Elder Scrolls Online is the spiritual successor of Dark Age of Camelot, right?
Yes,
Totally.
So if they build Cyrodiil like the old RVR place of Dark Age of Camelot, that means there's going to be a faction PvP area, which is you still can be flagged, but you have another boundary. And then once you leave that final boundary, now you're in the free-for-all zone. I think that what's going to happen is they'll probably control the center of Cyrodiil up front, but then over time, they're going to lose that control. Why, do you ask? Well, the reason being is I think that if we're a smaller faction, we're going to have better chances of advancing and better chances of getting, better in-game loot over time, whether it be through PvE or PvP. Especially if they come up with some other arena system. Right now, they're not looking at arena, but that's just based off of every single thing I've seen in other games. I know that's a little counterintuitive because people are thinking, well, if we control the realm, then we control it all. But if history and past performance is any indication of future performance, it just never really works out that way for long. Because then developers always end up coming up with some mechanic that's going to allow it to balance out. Because you can't, So I'm taking the chance of thinking that if I go one of the smaller factions, that initially I'll get kicked in the teeth, but then they're going to come up with those back end corrections, or the systems will change. Plus, you're going to have people get bored of that dominance of one space. So what are they going to do? They're going to then start leaving. And when they leave, then it's going to, allow things to shift, and then it'll balance over time.
Yeah, that's what they've been saying, that Cyrodiil will kind of self-balance itself out because, you may have a much larger alliance, but the more forts and stuff you start claiming, the more men you'll need to cover those areas. So you'll end up spreading yourself thin and allowing smaller alliances to come in and start taking things over.
Exactly, and then if you're able to hold on to, like, say, two keeps versus like 7 keeps, you're going to be able to keep those bonuses associated with the keeps for longer durations of time. So,
Yeah.
I don't know. Kind of a long-winded answer, but that's what I think.
All right, so we know that ESO is supposed to cater to like as many players as they can, but one of the arguments is, will this game cater to both hardcore players and the casual players? Because we know with a lot of MMOs these days, they kind of start handing things out to us. They call them welfare epics and stuff like that.
Welfare, I
where
love
they
that
just,
term.
Yeah, they just like hand out freebies to people that don't have a lot of time. That kind of pisses off the hardcore players that want to put in that time to get the things that then make them special. So how do you think ESOs can be able to cater to both the core players and the casuals?
I think that these guys, and this is based on my impressions of, sitting down and talking with these folks, is I think that they know what they want to be when they grow up. And what I mean by that is, yes, they want to, hit the largest shot group as possible. However, I think the way that they're going to remain true is they're going to, probably cater to the middle and hope that that's where the center of gravity just kind of shifts, where they just draw people that kind of draw right in the middle. So, the guy who's the diehard, single player guy who has to have the hands, he's never going to be happy because he doesn't have his little hands. And then the person who needs 500 buttons and macros because they have everything macroed out for MMO play, he's never going to be happy. So they're gonna get their synergy by looking at the basics and people who are kind of interested in both. So if you fill out any kind of a questionnaire, they kind of overlap. And I think that if they just go right down the middle by making it an Elder Scrolls game first that you can play with your friends versus an MMO versus just a Skyrim game, I think that they're going to be successful. I hope that's not really a cop-out answer, but I think that just try to tailor to just the center mass, then that's how they're going to be successful.
So we already talked about how ESO is going to try to cater to both TES and MMO players. Do you think the dumbing down of MMOs will drastically lower its longevity? Like WoW kind of leans towards the whole gear treadmill. That's how they kind of boost their longevity. What do you think ESO is going to... What precautions are they going to take to make sure this game lasts?
So what I think... this is speculation. So you're in the speculation zone.
That's what we're all about, man. So have this speculation, no problems.
So I don't know, and I haven't had these discussions, but this is what I think, and this is what I hope, is they're going to make it so that you can't just get all your gear like in a week or two, like a game that came out a little over a year ago. I think it's going to have to either raid or PvP, and they'll have gear that drops and gear that you craft, but relative to is it the epic purple gear that I need, or orange, or whatever the top tier is. Let's say purple is the top tier. I think it's going to be an effort to really get that gear A. The second thing is they're not having PvP or PvE gear. There's only one set of gear.
Yes.
That's going to make life so much better. The second thing is, which basically takes away that whole gear grind, part of the gear grind. The second thing is anybody can use any piece of gear or armor. So now you don't have to worry about cannibalism inside of a raid group, during drops, or, the thief gets every piece of loot in this raid and there's no thief.
And all that paladin gear dropping every single time. It's always a Ret Pally gear.
Oh, that was notorious in Vanilla WoW. That was notorious.
So I think that that's going to just get rid of a lot of the problems. And so I think that gear will become more meaningful, so that then you'll be wanting to do the activities to go get the gear. Now, in terms of over time, I know that they're going to come up with different levels of gear because
of course.
In an MMO you have to. But I think by having those two systems in place, and if you make the gear harder to get, I think you severely reduce the requirement to go through a gear grind as often. So, for example, if every 2 years I got to do a gear grind, that's not bad, because it took about a year or two for me to get this gear, and now I'm probably playing for about 6 months, maybe a year with it, and now like on year 2, year 3, new, bigger, better gear comes up. Well, now I have another year or two to get that gear. That's a realistic, healthy amount of time to look for it. Whereas in, this other game, I had all my gear within the first month, and now I'm like, well, now what do I do?
Yeah.
So I know to some people who are listening to this who don't really understand MMOs, who are probably not very old and haven't, like, if you say that you've been playing MMOs and all it's like WoW is your experience, then like I'm done talking with.
Right.
Yeah. They don't know what grinding is.
I'm done. I'm not talking to you anymore because you need about 10 more years of MMOs played and further understanding about how MMOs are to understand what I'm even talking about. Because doing that stuff is what I think has ruined it. Because now you have okay, I'm ready to play. I'm going to play for a month, and I'm going to have everything, and we're going to do all the raids, and then we're going to go play League of Legends. Okay. You're killing me, guy. That's the vertical scaling model versus the horizontal scaling model. A traditional MMO, for the most part, is going to have a vertical scaling model. I kill more rats so that I can get better gear, so I can kill bigger rats, right? As opposed to League of Legends, which is I start with nothing. I have a jockstrap and a rock, and fought for like an hour, and now I can go afford to pay for some plate mail, that kind of thing. And then at the end of it, I start off my next match again with a jockstrap and a rock again.
And also, like, not just the gear treadmill thing, but also we have the whole leveling of our skills and armors and weapons. All of that stuff can be leveled independently from your character's level. So even after you hit 50, they say that's only like a third of the way of your character's progression.
Yeah, that's only the beginning.
So yeah, you'll have like 30 times as much time just to level all your other weapons and armors and stuff that you may want.
See, the way that having add-ons or not really DLC, but true expansions and level additions, that's how it'll make sense. That's how you'll round out the tree or get more skills. Because if you use a sword all the time, guess what? You get better at using a sword. If you use a bow, you get better at using a bow. But you're only going to be able to get so many skills up to level 50. Once they come up with expansions and say now level 60 is the next thing, well, now that's how you're able to start delving into these other abilities. So I think that by doing it slow and knowing what they want to be when they grow up and not pandering and not panicking, I think that that's how to be successful.
And speaking of the whole expansion thing, like, we know there are areas that are blocked off at launch that you will not be able to access, and they're kind of saving that stuff for expansions. They haven't mentioned if they're going to be like actual standalone expansions that they will then sell to us, or if it'll just be like areas that will eventually open up for like more adventure zones for us to level up and things like that. But there definitely is a lot of room for expansion within just Tamriel itself. All right, so let's hit on the big topic I know that Mark is big on, is the community with ESO fans and the fan sites, casters like us, and also developers at ZeniMax. What is the importance of working on the community and making sure that it's a strong one?
A couple of things. I think that first and foremost, we need to try to work together just to keep things positive, because 9 out of 10 forums are just cesspools. It's just, hey guys, how do you do whatever, and then you get flamed. Like, you should have read the forums, you idiot. And I'm like, well, that's what I thought this was for, so I could. So I mean, it's an effort to hopefully try to liven that up so that people are working together, because we're definitely stronger together than we are working against one another. The other big reason is for end games. So you have people that that you want to play with. You might already have plans to do your guild, like the Shoddycast Guild, and we have our guild. But there's no reason that we can't either get together in an alliance or have tunes in each other's guilds and just have reasons to go group and enjoy the game with other people. So the more that I think that we try to just understand who we are outside of the game, within our individual things, it's more opportunities to try to do some epic stuff in game. So for example, those 3 fan sites I just mentioned, let's say each one of them brought like 25 people. Well, now we got 100 people that can go kick some heads in Cyrodiil. That's cool. That's really awesome. The other thing is I think that a lot of times fan sites start and they peter out because they realize that to truly run a really good fan site, it's a lot of work. So I think that if groups can kind of just either collapse into one another or support each other, now the product is better. Because you don't want 25 sick sites. You'd rather have 6 really healthy, good sites that are producing quality content.
Right.
So,
it's not only better, but it's not sapping the life from this person trying to run it alone.
Exactly, right. And so that's the reason why the more that you guys learn about each other, the more you might realize, well, I try to do it, but I just can't get it. And so maybe if I help you, I can do this one section. Now that site becomes a better site, or 2 sites converge. And so the last thing I want to say is, have less sites. The thing I'm trying to say is have more sites, or have sites that are just better sites, right? And it's also a chance for people to collaborate. One of the big things that we did was, we did banner exchanges, but we also had folks from like ToroCast would write articles and post them on our site, or we'd have different groups provide, podcasts and put them on our site. So we would have, different groups work with each other and just come up with cool collaborative ideas. I mean, I think that, Elder Scrolls Off the Record is doing some really amazing stuff with the podcast, and they have good community discussion. I love what Tamriel Foundry is doing with, their database. I love what you guys are doing with your video series and, now your lore series. So, I mean, that stuff's cool. And there's other sites, TSOF, whatever. Was it?
Tessoff, yeah, Tessoff.
Was it the Shadowed Mare or something like that?
Yeah, Shadowmere.
Shadow. I mean, there's these sites out there. I mean, there's one called Troll Scroll. I mean, there's all these sites out there doing cool stuff, and I just think that if folks work together, then you have fun. Because like when it was all of us, Cron Run Radio, ToroCast, Earth Hater, Most Sizey Radio, Tour Syndicate. Whenever we'd go to E3, PAX, Comic-Con, all those things, we'd all do our individual thing, but then we were all drinking and hanging out on the in the bars in the evening, and then we would all do a combined group podcast or something, and then we ended up being, for lack of a better word, fodder for each other's shows. We then had our own built-in guests / subject matter experts to talk about stuff and rotate amongst the community. So it became its own self-licking ice cream cone, and I hope to bring or generate or promote within Elder Scrolls before the game comes out. And, I might completely fail and fall on my face, but, it doesn't mean that I can't try to create a good thing for this community, because I think it's a cool one.
And you've definitely already proven yourself that that's what you're trying to do, because we've already ourselves come into contact through you to other people, be it with Tamriel Foundry and Elder Scrolls Off the Record. So I guess like the main thing we need to do with the fans and all the other fan sites and casters and stuff is to just keep an open line of communication. And also ZeniMax. I mean, I know we try to answer as many of the fans' questions as possible just to get that information out there for them. We know ZeniMax is doing the same thing on Twitter. I see just an amazing amount of response from them, which is a great thing to see. And so that's like the main thing we all need to do as like a responsibility for us, is just to keep that open line of communication.
Oh yeah, community is going to be very important, especially leading up to this game too, because like we have this whole audience of exclusively Elder Scrolls. I mean, I don't know if there's ever really been another MMO that released that had so many people hyped for it that probably haven't played MMOs in the past. So, easing them into this whole community thing and seeing that, oh man, I'm going to get to experience this game with other people who love this game too.
All right, so I guess that is going to be it. We, both me and, of course, Josh, would like to thank Mark for joining us on today's episode.
First ever shoddy guest. That's legendary, man. Your song will be sung throughout eternity for that.
Thank you so much.
Congratulations. No, but thank you so much, man. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you. Keep doing what you're doing, guys. I love the show.
Yeah, man. We'll be here. And we also, I know we've been dogging ZeniMax here and there every once in a while when we don't agree with them, but we just want to say we do really appreciate ZeniMax Online for what they are doing, taking this like monumental step into just combining a single player and MMO atmosphere into one. And also, we just want to send out an invite to Tamriel Foundry, Elder Scrolls Off the Record, and also the Forts community. Should they want to, do something with us, or vice versa, do something with them, send us a line, man. We're all here to strengthen the community as much as possible. That's what we're all here for.
Don't be strangers.
So I guess that would be it for us. I have been Kyle.
I have been Josh.
We will catch you later. Oh, wait.
No.
Oh, yeah, that guy over
You
there.
had to let him go. Come on.
I'm sorry, Mark. You too. He's there, too.
Bye. Thanks for coming.
Awesome ending. We'll catch you later, guys.